Widow Millionaire discovered what the single-father janitor did with his wheelchair-bound daughter. Her reaction was shocking. Just before the story starts, wherever you are on your journey, consider this your sign to keep going. Victoria Bennett's heels clicked against the marble floor of Bennett Technologies' 40th floor, like a metronome counting down to midnight, 9 p.m. on a Friday, and she was still here, still working, still running from the silence of her empty penthouse. 29 years old, widow for 8 months, CEO of a company worth $340 million, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept through the night without waking to reach for David's side of the bed. The office should have been empty. Security had confirmed everyone clocked out by 7. That's why her breath caught when she noticed light spilling from Conference Room B, the one overlooking the Chicago skyline that David had loved so much. Her first thought, corporate espionage. Her second, I'm calling security. Her third thought never fully formed because that's when she heard it. A child's laughter, pure and bright as crystal, echoing through the executive floor where children never came, where laughter had become a foreign language. Victoria's hand hovered over her phone. Every instinct screamed to call security, to protect the company David had built from nothing, the legacy she'd sworn to preserve. But something in that laugh, something innocent and unjaded, pulled her forward instead. She moved quietly, her $800 heels suddenly feeling like instruments of betrayal against the imported Italian marble. The conference room door stood slightly ajar, and through the gap, Victoria saw something that made her freeze mid-step. Marcus Rivera, the night janitor, stood at the massive whiteboard that dominated the room's north wall. He was teaching, mathematical equations that looked far too advanced for any ordinary conversation. And seated in a wheelchair at the conference table, her small hands covered in whiteboard marker stains, was a little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes that sparkled with fierce intelligence. "Okay, Lilybug," Marcus said, his voice carrying the warm roughness of someone who'd worked hard his entire life. "If x equals -3, what happens to our equation?" The girl, Lily, Victoria remembered Marcus mentioning her once, maybe twice in the 3 years he'd worked here, couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She studied the board with an intensity that seemed impossible for her age, her small face scrunched in concentration. "The square becomes +9, Lily announced, her voice high and confident. "So -3 times -3 is +9, and then we add the 2x, which is -6 plus 1, so the answer is 4. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. That wasn't simple arithmetic. That was algebra, the kind her company's junior engineers struggled with, from a 6-year-old. Marcus's face broke into a grin so proud, so utterly devoted, that something cracked in Victoria's carefully maintained armor. "That's my genius girl. You got it perfect." He held up his hand and Lily high-fived him with such enthusiasm that she nearly toppled her wheelchair. "Can we do another one, Papa? Please? The harder ones? Baby, it's almost 9:30. We need to get you home for bed." "But Papa!" Lily's voice took on the universal whine of children everywhere. "I'm not even tired. And tomorrow's Saturday, so I can sleep late." Victoria should have announced herself, should have asked what they were doing using company resources without permission, should have done her job as CEO and enforced the rules that kept this billion-dollar machine running smoothly. But she couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but watch as Marcus knelt beside his daughter's wheelchair and tucked a curl behind her ear with such tenderness that Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I know, Lilybug. I know you want to keep going, but your papa's got to finish his work and you need your rest. Besides," he tapped her nose gently, "your brain needs sleep to process all these amazing things you're learning. Promise we'll do more tomorrow?" "I promise. Double promise. Triple promise, with chocolate on top." Lily giggled, and the sound was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Victoria watched, transfixed, as Marcus began gathering papers from the table. Papers covered in equations, drawings, calculations that looked like they belonged in a university physics department, not in the hands of a child. That's when Victoria's gaze fell on the recycling bin beside the table. More papers, crumpled and discarded. Her executive brain, trained to notice details, caught sight of familiar letterhead, her company's engineering department. Without thinking, she pulled out her phone and zoomed in on one of the crumpled papers visible near the top of the bin. Her blood ran cold. Those equations. She recognized them. They were from Project Nexus, the artificial intelligence integration her team had been struggling with for months. 50 engineers, $12 million in development costs, and they'd been stuck on a thermal efficiency problem that was holding up the entire launch. And there, on that crumpled paper in a child's handwriting, was what looked like a solution. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Victoria must have made a sound, a gasp, a breath, something, because Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes meeting hers through the gap in the door. For a moment they stared at each other, and Victoria saw fear flash across his face, raw and immediate. Ms. Bennet. He stood quickly, positioning himself between Victoria and his daughter, his body language screaming protection. I can explain. Victoria pushed the door open fully, her CEO mask sliding into place even as her mind reeled. You're using company facilities after hours. That's against policy, Mr. Rivera. I know, I'm sorry, Marcus glanced at Lily, who had gone very quiet, her small hands gripping the arms of her wheelchair. Lily loves to learn, and I can't afford tutors or... You're teaching your 6-year-old daughter advanced algebra. Victoria's voice came out sharper than she intended, using my company's conference rooms. She's very smart, Marcus said, and there was something defensive in his tone now, something fierce, smarter than anyone gives her credit for. The school says she's disruptive and that she asks too many questions, that she should be in special education because of her wheelchair. They don't see her, Ms. Bennet. They don't see what she can do. Victoria's gaze shifted to Lily, really seeing her for the first time. The little girl looked terrified, her brown eyes wide and filling with tears, her small body shrinking into her wheelchair as if she could disappear. We're sorry, Lily whispered, her voice breaking. Please don't fire my papa. Please. I'll be good. I won't come back, I promise. And there it was. The thing that shattered Victoria's carefully constructed walls completely. This tiny girl, this impossibly brilliant child, was begging for her father's job with the same desperation Victoria had heard in her own voice years ago, when she'd begged the bank not to foreclose on her childhood home, when she'd promised she'd be good, if only they'd give her mother another chance. I'm not, Victoria started, then stopped, realizing she'd been about to say exactly what she'd come in here to do: fire Marcus, enforce the rules, protect the company. But looking at Lily's tear-stained face, at Marcus's desperate pride, at the papers covered in impossible equations, Victoria found she couldn't speak at all. Something was happening here, something important, something that her grief-numbed heart recognized even if her logical brain couldn't process it yet. Show me, Victoria heard herself say. Show me what she can do. Marcus blinked. What? Those papers. Those equations. Show me what she's been working on. For a long moment Marcus didn't move. Then slowly, carefully he gathered the papers from the table and the recycling bin, smoothing out the crumpled ones, organizing them with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd spent years cleaning up after others. He handed them to Victoria and his hands were shaking. Victoria spread the papers across the conference table, her eyes scanning equations that should have been impossible for a child to even comprehend, let alone solve. There were mistakes. Yes, childish errors in arithmetic here and there, numbers written backward occasionally, but the core concepts, the logical progressions, the innovative approaches to problems that had stumped her team of PhD-holding engineers. My God, Victoria breathed. She actually solved it. The thermal distribution problem for Project Nexus. She looked up at Marcus, then at Lily, who was watching her with the wary hope of someone who'd been disappointed too many times to fully believe in miracles. How? She sees patterns, Marcus said quietly. Always has, since she was tiny. Numbers make sense to her in a way they don't for most people. She can look at a problem and just see the solution, like it's obvious. It is obvious, Lily piped up, her voice small but gaining confidence. The numbers want to balance. You just have to let them. Victoria sank into one of the leather conference chairs, papers clutched in her hands, her mind racing faster than it had in months. Since David died, since the funeral, since she'd buried her heart along with her husband and thrown herself into work as a way to forget that she'd ever felt anything at all. Mr. Rivera, Marcus, please, Marcus. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, seeing past the janitor's uniform to the man beneath. Mid-30s, she guessed. Tired eyes but a kind face. Calloused hands that held his daughter with infinite gentleness. How long have you been doing this? Bringing her here after hours? He shifted uncomfortably. 6 months. Since her school said they couldn't accommodate her anymore. Since they decided a disabled kid who asked too many questions was too much trouble. His voice hardened. I work second shift, 7 to midnight. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, usually watches Lily, but she had a stroke 3 months ago. I had no choice but to bring Lily with me. I swear we don't bother anyone. We don't touch anything except the whiteboards, and I clean everything perfectly before I leave. You'd never know we were here. Except I do know, Victoria said. And I should fire you for policy violations. I should call security right now. Marcus's face went pale. Please, but I'm not going to, Victoria continued, surprised by her own words even as she spoke them. Because, she gestured at the papers, at the equations, at the proof of genius sitting in front of her in a wheelchair, looking at her with eyes too old and too knowing for 6 years. Because I think your daughter might be the smartest person in this building. And because, her voice cracked unexpectedly, because David would have wanted me to help. David? Marcus asked gently. My husband. He died. 8 months ago. Victoria wiped at her eyes angrily, frustrated that she was crying in front of employees, in front of strangers. He started this company because he believed technology should help people, should change lives. He would have taken one look at Lily and moved heaven and earth to make sure she got every opportunity she deserved. Silence fell over the conference room, broken only by the soft hum of the city 40 floors below. Victoria stared at the papers in her hands, at the proof of something extraordinary, and felt the first stirring of purpose she'd experienced since David's funeral. Here was something worth fighting for, someone worth helping. A way to honor David's memory that didn't involve drowning in spreadsheets and board meetings and the hollow shell of the life they'd planned together. I want to offer Lily a full scholarship, Victoria said, the decision crystallizing even as she spoke. The Bennett Foundation, David's foundation, funds gifted education programs. We'll get her into Ashford Academy, the best private school in Chicago. We'll cover everything, tuition, supplies, therapists, whatever accommodations she needs. No. Marcus's voice cut through her words like a knife. Thank you, but no. Victoria blinked. I'm sorry, what? I said no. Marcus's jaw was set, his pride evident in every line of his body. I appreciate the offer, Ms. Bennett. I do. But I don't accept charity. This isn't charity, Victoria protested. This is recognizing exceptional talent and— It's charity, Marcus interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. And I've spent Lily's entire life proving that we don't need anyone's pity. She's disabled, but she's not broken. I'm a janitor, but I'm not a failure. We're doing fine on our own. Are you? Victoria's own frustration leaked into her voice. Because from where I'm sitting, you're teaching your genius daughter in borrowed conference rooms after midnight because you can't afford proper education. That's not fine, Marcus. That's tragic. We're surviving, Marcus shot back. And survival with dignity is better than handouts from people who will hold them over your head forever. I wouldn't. You would. Eventually. Everyone does. Marcus started gathering Lily's things, stuffing papers into a worn backpack with shaking hands. Thank you for not firing me, Ms. Bennett. I promise it won't happen again. We'll find somewhere else to study. Come on, Lilybug, time to go. But Lily wasn't moving. She sat in her wheelchair, tears streaming down her small face, her hands clenched into fists. Papa, no. Papa, please. I want to go to the school. I want to learn more. Please. Lily, why do you always have to be so proud? The words burst from Lily with surprising fury. Why can't you just let someone help us? I want to go to a real school. I want to have friends and teachers and I want to learn everything. Why won't you let me? The devastation on Marcus's face was absolute. Victoria watched, frozen, as this proud man crumbled in front of his daughter's desperate plea, his shoulders sagging under the weight of all the things he couldn't provide, all the dreams he couldn't afford to give her. Baby, his voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But accepting their money means accepting their power over us, and I can't. Then I'll make you a deal, Victoria interrupted, an idea forming even as she spoke. Not charity. A job. Marcus looked at her suspiciously. What kind of job? Lily solves my company's problems. Real problems. Like this thermal efficiency issue that's been holding up our AI launch. Victoria pointed at the papers. My engineers have been stuck on this for 3 months. If Lily can actually solve it, if she can prove her solutions work, then she's consulting for Bennett Technologies. And consultants get paid. Fair market rate. She's 6 years old. She's a genius. Age is irrelevant. Victoria leaned forward, feeling alive for the first time in months. I'll pay her consulting fees directly into an education trust fund. Not a gift, Marcus. Payment for services rendered. And if she's as brilliant as these papers suggest, she'll have her tuition funded by her own work. No charity. No pity. Just a child prodigy getting paid what she's worth. Marcus stared at her, and Victoria could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Pride versus love, independence versus opportunity, everything he'd built versus everything his daughter deserved. "Papa," Lily whispered, "please." And just like that, the war was over. Because what parent could resist that plea, that hope, that desperate faith in the possibility of more? 1 month, Marcus said finally. Trial period. She solves real problems, proves she's actually helping, and we'll consider it. But the second this turns into charity, the second you treat her like some pet project or some feel-good story for your board meetings, we're done. Understood? Understood. Victoria extended her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Marcus shook it. His grip was firm, calloused, honest. The handshake of a man who'd worked for everything he had and refused to apologize for it. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you, Ms. Bennett. I promise I'll work really hard. I'll be the best consultant ever." Victoria smiled, and it felt strange on her face, like a muscle she'd forgotten how to use. "I believe you will." As Marcus wheeled Lily toward the door, the little girl clutching her backpack like it contained all the treasures in the world, Victoria called out, "Marcus, why were you using the engineering department's discarded papers?" He turned back, and for the first time she saw embarrassment on his face. "I empty the recycling bins. I see the problems the engineers are working on. Sometimes I think, maybe Lily could help. So I bring the papers here, we look at them together, she tries to solve them. I know I shouldn't, but..." "Keep doing it," Victoria interrupted. "In fact, I'll have the engineering department's recycling moved to a secure location where you can access it properly. And Marcus, bring me Lily's solutions. All of them. Let's see what else that brilliant mind can do." The smile that broke across Marcus's face was like sunrise, and Victoria felt something shift in her chest, some ice that had been frozen solid for 8 months beginning, impossibly to crack. As father and daughter disappeared into the elevator, Victoria stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by papers covered in a child's handwriting, and felt the first whisper of something that might have been hope. She had no idea, standing there in that moment of tentative new beginning, that this decision would unravel secrets that had been buried for 6 years, that it would lead to revelations about Marcus's past that would shake her to her core, or that the connection between them ran far deeper than either could have imagined. She didn't know that helping this little girl would force her to confront the truth about David's death, about her own company, about the very foundation on which her entire life was built. All Victoria knew as she gathered the papers and prepared to take them home for the first time in months instead of sleeping in her office, was that she'd just made a decision that felt right, in a way nothing had felt right, since the day they'd lowered David's casket into the ground. And for now, that was enough. The Ashford Academy admissions office looked like it had been decorated by someone who believed children should be seen through bulletproof glass, and heard only when announcing their acceptance to Ivy League universities. Victoria sat in an antique chair that cost more than Marcus probably made in 3 months, watching the admissions director, a woman named Patricia Thornwood who wore her gray hair like a weapon, flip through Lily's file with the enthusiasm of someone examining a particularly unimpressive tax return. It had been 2 weeks since that night in the conference room, 2 weeks of Lily solving problems that left Victoria's engineering team speechless, 2 weeks of watching Marcus arrive each evening with his daughter, no longer hiding but walking through the front doors with his head held high, carrying a little girl who was quickly becoming the talk of Bennett Technologies. 2 weeks of Victoria feeling something that might have been happiness, or at least the memory of what happiness used to feel like. And now this, the final hurdle, getting Lily into the school that could actually nurture her gifts. "Ms. Bennett," Patricia said, her voice carrying the carefully modulated disappointment of someone who'd perfected the art of rejection. "I appreciate the Bennett Foundation's generous donation to our building fund, but Ashford Academy has standards." "I'm aware of your standards," Victoria replied coolly. "That's why I'm here. The child is 6 years old and currently not enrolled in any educational institution." Patricia tapped the file. "She has no transcripts, no standardized test scores, no teacher recommendations, and, if I may be frank, her physical limitations would require significant accommodations that..." "You mean her wheelchair?" Victoria's voice could have cut glass. "Say what you mean, Ms. Thornwood. You're concerned about having a disabled student. Ashford Academy prides itself on excellence. Then you should be thrilled to have Lily Rivera." Victoria pulled out her tablet, swiping to a file she'd prepared specifically for this meeting. This is a thermal efficiency problem that my company's engineering team, 12 people with PhDs from MIT, Stanford, and Cambridge, spent 3 months trying to solve. Lily solved it in 45 minutes. This is a data compression algorithm that we were about to hire an outside consulting firm to develop at a cost of $200,000. Lily designed a better one in 2 days. Ms. Bennett, I'm not finished. Victoria stood, her full CEO presence filling the small office. This is a 6-year-old child who taught herself advanced mathematics using YouTube videos and her father's high school textbooks. A child who sees patterns in chaos, solutions in problems, possibilities where everyone else sees limitations, and you're telling me she doesn't meet your standards? Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. Our other parents have expectations. They pay significant tuition for their children to learn in an optimal environment. Having a child who requires special accommodations might distract from. Having a child who's smarter than all of them combined might make them uncomfortable, you mean? Victoria leaned forward. Let me be very clear, Ms. Thornwood. Lily Rivera will attend Ashford Academy starting next semester. The only question is whether you'll accept her through normal admission processes, or whether I'll need to have a conversation with your board about how your admissions director discriminates against disabled students, despite the very clear language in your school's mission statement about nurturing every exceptional mind. Are you threatening me? I'm clarifying your options. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. I've already spoken with 3 board members who are very interested in Lily's case. One of them has a grandson with cerebral palsy who was rejected from Ashford last year. He's particularly curious about your admission patterns regarding disabled applicants. The color drained from Patricia's face. That's public information, as are your tax filings as a nonprofit institution, which show exactly 0 students receiving accommodations for physical disabilities in the past 5 years, despite Illinois state guidelines requiring, fine. Patricia practically spat the word. She can take the admission test, but if she fails, she won't. Victoria gathered her things. Schedule it for next week. And Ms. Thornwood, when Lily Rivera becomes the youngest person to ever score perfectly on your admissions exam, I expect a formal apology, in writing. Victoria swept out of the office, her heart pounding with fury and satisfaction in equal measure. She'd never been that person before, the one who used wealth and connections as weapons, who threatened and manipulated to get what she wanted. David would have done it differently, would have charmed and reasoned and somehow made everyone feel good about doing the right thing. But David was dead, and Victoria was learning to fight battles he never had to face. Her phone rang as she reached her car. Marcus. He never called during work hours, which meant something was wrong. What happened? She asked immediately. I got fired. His voice was flat, emotionless in that way that meant he was barely holding himself together. From my janitor job. They said I was using company resources for personal matters, violating policy. I'm done, Ms. Bennett. Effective immediately. Victoria's blood turned to ice. Jerry Stockton fired you. How did you? Because Jerry's been trying to undermine me since David died. He was convinced the board should have made him CEO instead of David's widow playing at business. Victoria's mind was already racing, calculating, planning. He found out about Lily, about what we're doing, and he's using you to get at me. I can't afford to be without work, Marcus said, and now she could hear the panic leaking through. I have rent due in 2 weeks, Lily's medical appointments, her wheelchair needs maintenance. Come to my office, now. Victoria unlocked her car. And Marcus, don't do anything, don't sign anything, don't talk to anyone until I get there. She made it back to Bennett Technologies in record time, breaking at least 3 traffic laws and not caring about any of them. Jerry Stockton wanted a war? Fine, he'd get one, but he'd made a critical mistake. He'd gone after someone Victoria cared about, and she was discovering that grief had burned away her capacity for mercy. Jerry was waiting in her office when she arrived, which told her everything she needed to know about his confidence. He sat in David's chair, her chair now, like he owned it, his expensive suit and smug expression radiating the kind of entitled authority that Victoria had spent years learning to navigate. Victoria, he said, not bothering to stand. I assume Mr. Rivera called you. You had no authority to fire him. Victoria didn't sit, didn't remove her coat, just stood there radiating barely controlled fury. That's an HR decision. And last I checked, you're the CFO, not the head of human resources. I have authority to enforce company policy. Jerry pulled out a folder. Mr. Rivera has been using company facilities for personal purposes. bringing unauthorized individuals into secure areas, accessing confidential engineering documents. Under my direct authorization, Victoria crossed her arms. I hired Lily Rivera as a consultant. Everything Marcus has done has been with my full knowledge and approval. A 6-year-old consultant. Jerry's laugh was ugly. Come on, Victoria. You expect the board to believe that? This is clearly some kind of grief-induced charity project. I'm actually doing you a favor stopping it before you embarrass yourself further. The board has seen Lily's work. They've approved her consulting contract. So unless you're questioning the board's judgment, I'm questioning yours. Jerry stood now, and Victoria saw the real anger beneath his corporate veneer. You've been a disaster since David died. Late to meetings, unfocused, emotional. And now this, pretending a janitor's kid is some kind of genius so you can feel good about yourself. David built this company on excellence, not sentiment. Don't you dare speak about David. Victoria's voice dropped to something dangerous. You have no idea what he would have wanted. I worked with him for 10 years. I think I know better than the widow who only joined the company 2 years before he died. Jerry's smile was cruel. Face it, Victoria. You're in over your head. The board knows it. I know it. The only person who doesn't seem to know it is you. Victoria was saved from responding by her office door bursting open. Marcus stood there breathing hard, his eyes wild. And behind him, being pushed in her wheelchair by Victoria's assistant, was Lily, her small face pale with fear. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett, Victoria's assistant stammered. He said it was urgent. Papa lost his job because of me. Lily's voice was small but clear. I heard him on the phone. I made him bring me here because I need to fix it. Lily, you don't... Marcus started. No, Papa, I do. Lily wheeled herself forward, and despite her size, despite her disability, there was something regal in the way she moved. She stopped in front of Jerry Stockton and looked up at him with those enormous brown eyes. You fired my papa because he was helping me. That's not fair. Jerry's expression flickered with something that might have been discomfort before his corporate mask slid back into place. Little girl, this is adult business. I'm a consultant for Bennett Technologies, Lily interrupted. Ms. Bennett hired me because I'm good at solving problems. I solved the thermal efficiency problem for Project Nexus. I redesigned the data compression algorithm for the cloud storage system. I figured out the bug in the security protocol that was costing the company $50,000 a month. That's adult business. And I did it. So if my papa helped me do my job, then he was doing his job too. The office fell silent. Victoria stared at this tiny girl in her wheelchair, this 6-year-old who somehow understood the politics of corporate warfare better than most executives, and felt something that might have been awe. I'll give you a choice, Lily continued, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. You can keep my papa fired and I'll quit. I won't solve any more problems for Bennett Technologies. Ms. Bennett says the AI launch depends on me fixing the neural network integration, so if I quit, your launch gets delayed. Or you can give my papa his job back and I'll keep working and everyone wins. But you don't get to punish him for me being smart. That's not how families work. Jerry looked at Victoria, then at Marcus, then back at this impossible child. You expect me to be blackmailed by a 6-year-old? I expect you to do what's best for the company, Victoria said quietly. And right now, what's best is keeping Lily Rivera happy and working. So yes, Jerry, reinstate Marcus, immediately. Or what? Or I call an emergency board meeting and present a motion of no confidence in your judgment. I'll present Lily's work, her contract, her contributions to our bottom line. I'll present your decision to fire her father without cause as evidence that you're allowing personal bias to interfere with business decisions. And then I'll remind the board that David's will gave me controlling interest in this company specifically to prevent people like you from running it into the ground. Jerry's face went purple. You choose, Jerry, now. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then Jerry grabbed his folder and stalked toward the door. Fine. Consider him reinstated. But this isn't over, Victoria. The board will hear about this. I'm counting on it. When Jerry was gone, Victoria finally allowed herself to exhale. She looked at Marcus, who was staring at his daughter like he'd never seen her before, then at Lily, who was wiping her tears with the back of her hand. That was incredible, Victoria said softly. Lily, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I was scared, Lily admitted. But Papa always says being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're scared. Marcus made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He knelt beside Lily's wheelchair and pulled her into a fierce hug. When did you get so smart, Lily Bug? I've always been smart, Papa. You taught me that. Victoria turned away, giving them a moment of privacy, and found herself looking at the photo of David on her desk. He was smiling in it, the way he used to smile at her, the way that made her feel like she was the only person in the world who mattered. What would he think of all this? Would he approve? Would he understand why she was fighting so hard for a family she barely knew? Ms. Bennett? Lily's voice pulled her back. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you helping us? Really? Papa says people always want something back. Victoria considered the question, considered all the easy lies she could tell. Then she looked at this brilliant, brave little girl and decided she deserved the truth. Because since my husband died, I've been lost, Victoria said quietly. I've been going through the motions of living without actually feeling alive. And then I found you and your father, and for the first time in 8 months I felt like I had a purpose again, like I was doing something that mattered. So really, Lily, you're helping me as much as I'm helping you. Lily considered this with the seriousness of someone far older than 6. Then she held out her small hand. Deal. We help each other. Victoria took her hand and felt tears burning behind her eyes again. Deal. Ms. Bennett? Marcus's voice was rough with emotion. Thank you. For everything. For fighting for us. I don't know how to. You already are, Victoria interrupted. You're raising an extraordinary daughter, Marcus. That's more than enough. As father and daughter left her office, Marcus returning to work, Lily excited to tackle her next problem, Victoria sank into her chair and allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. She'd made an enemy of Jerry Stockton. She'd exposed herself to accusations of emotional decision-making. She'd tied her professional reputation to a 6-year-old consultant and her janitor father. David would have called it reckless, impulsive, dangerous. But David was dead, and Victoria was learning that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was play it safe. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Be careful with Marcus Rivera. Not everything is what it seems. No signature. No follow-up. Victoria stared at the message, ice creeping down her spine. Who would send this? Jerry? Trying to undermine her confidence? Some concerned employee? Or was there actually something about Marcus she didn't know? Something hidden beneath the devoted father act? She thought about deleting the message. Then she thought about David, about trust, about all the ways life could betray you when you least expected it. And she saved it instead. 3 weeks after Lily's dramatic confrontation with Jerry Stockton, Victoria found herself doing something she'd never imagined, attending a 6-year-old's birthday party in a cramped apartment in Chicago's South Side. The building was old but clean, the kind of place where people worked hard to maintain dignity despite poverty. Marcus had insisted she didn't need to come, that it was just a small family gathering, but Lily had looked at her with those enormous eyes and asked, "Will you be there?" And Victoria had found it impossible to say no. The apartment was tiny, a 1-bedroom that Marcus and Lily clearly shared, with a pull-out couch covered in mathematical textbooks and papers. But it was filled with warmth, with streamers and balloons, with the smell of homemade cake and the sound of laughter. A handful of neighbors had come, bringing small gifts wrapped in newspaper and grocery bags. Mrs. Chen from next door, recovered from her stroke but moving slowly, had made Filipino pancit. Mr. Washington from upstairs brought a stuffed unicorn that had seen better days but was given with such affection that Lily had hugged it like treasure. Victoria felt completely out of place in her designer dress and expensive jewelry, surrounded by people who measured wealth in whether they could afford both electricity and heat in the same month. She'd brought an elaborate gift, a top-of-the-line laptop with educational software that cost more than Marcus probably made in 2 months, and watching him open it, seeing his face tighten with that mix of gratitude and wounded pride, she realized she'd made a mistake. It's too much, Marcus said quietly, pulling her aside while Lily showed the other children her new laptop. Ms. Bennett, I appreciate it, but it's from the company, Victoria interrupted. For her consulting work, she needs proper equipment to do her job. She's 6. She doesn't have a job. She has a childhood, and I'm trying to let her keep it for as long as possible. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, frustration evident. Every time you give her something, every time you show her this world of private schools and expensive gifts, you're showing her everything I can't provide. Do you understand how that feels? I'm not trying to. I know. That's what makes it worse. Marcus's smile was tired. You're trying to help. You genuinely care. But Victoria, he paused, seeming to realize he'd used her first name. Ms. Bennett, you're building her a castle in the sky. And when this all falls apart, when you get bored or the board forces you to stop or something happens to make this end, Lily and I will still be here, in this apartment, living this life. Only now she'll know exactly what she's missing. It's not going to fall apart, Victoria protested. Everything falls apart eventually. Marcus's voice was heavy with something that sounded like experience. Trust me on that. Before Victoria could respond, Lily called out, "Papa! Miss Bennett, come see! Mrs. Chen is teaching me a card game." The moment passed, but it left Victoria unsettled, Marcus's words echoing in her mind. She watched him throughout the party, really watched him, and saw things she'd missed before. The way his eyes constantly scanned the room, like he was looking for exits or threats. The way he positioned himself between Lily and the door, always. The tension in his shoulders that never quite relaxed. The careful way he answered questions about his past, revealing nothing of substance. "He's a good man," Mrs. Chen said, appearing beside Victoria with a plate of pancit. "But a man with secrets. We all have them here. The South Side teaches you to ask only what you need to know and accept only what people choose to tell." "What kind of secrets?" Victoria asked before she could stop herself. Mrs. Chen studied her with sharp eyes that had seen decades of human nature. "The kind that make a man change his name. The kind that make him never want his picture taken. The kind that make him terrified every time a police car drives by." She patted Victoria's hand. "But also the kind that make a man love his daughter so fiercely he'll work 3 jobs to keep her fed. The kind that make him a good neighbor, a kind soul. We all got here somehow, miss. The question is what we do once we arrive." Victoria's phone buzzed. Another text from that unknown number. Ask him about Phoenix. Ask him about the accident. Ask him what really happened to Lily's mother. Her blood ran cold. She looked up, searching for Marcus, and found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Had he seen her phone? Did he know someone was sending her messages about him? "Everything okay?" he asked, walking over. "Fine," Victoria lied. "Just work." But it wasn't fine, because now she couldn't unsee it. The way Marcus deflected personal questions, the way he had no photos from before Lily was born, the way his entire life seemed to start 6 years ago in this Chicago apartment with no history, no context, no explanation of how a man with his intelligence ended up working as a janitor. The party wound down. Guests left. Mrs. Chen helped clean up, then departed with a meaningful look at Victoria that said, "Be careful," as clearly as words. And then it was just Victoria, Marcus, and Lily, who had fallen asleep in her wheelchair, exhausted from excitement, her new unicorn clutched in her arms. "I should go," Victoria said, gathering her purse. "Wait," Marcus's voice stopped her. "I need to tell you something. About Lily. About her mother." Victoria's heart hammered. "You don't have to." "I do." Marcus sank onto the couch, suddenly looking much older than his 35 years. "Because you're trusting us. You're putting your reputation on the line for us. And you deserve to know who you're helping." He gestured for her to sit. Victoria did, every nerve on alert. "Lily's mother was named Sarah," Marcus began, his voice low so as not to wake his daughter. "We met when I was different, when I had a different life. She was beautiful, brilliant, kind. We got married young, had Lily, thought we had the world figured out. What happened? There was an accident." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "A car accident when Lily was 6 months old. Sarah was driving. She died on impact. Lily," his voice broke. "Lily survived, but her spine was damaged. The doctors said she'd never walk, that she'd be lucky to have normal cognitive function given the head trauma she sustained. Marcus, I'm so sorry. They were wrong about her brain," Marcus continued. "She's a genius, smarter than I ever could have hoped. But her legs, those they were right about. And every day I look at my daughter in that wheelchair and I remember that I should have been driving that day. That if I just..." He stopped, breathing hard. "I ran after the accident. Ran from everything. Came here. Started over. Tried to build a life where Lily could be safe and happy despite everything I'd done to destroy our family. It wasn't your fault," Victoria said softly. "Accidents happen. Do they?" Marcus looked at her, and there was something dark in his eyes, something desperate. "Or do we cause them through our choices, our mistakes, our arrogance? I had everything, Victoria, everything. And I threw it away because I thought I was smarter than I was. Because I thought rules didn't apply to me. And now my daughter pays the price every single day." Victoria wanted to ask more, wanted to know what he meant about his choices, his old life. what he'd done that made him feel responsible for an accident. But Lily stirred in her wheelchair, making a small sound, and Marcus immediately shifted into father mode, all his attention focused on making sure she was comfortable. "You should go," he said, his emotional walls slamming back into place. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to Lily, to both of us, both." Victoria left, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus had told her a truth wrapped in lies, that there were layers to his story she wasn't seeing. In her car, she pulled out her phone and stared at the mysterious messages. Ask him about Phoenix. Ask him about the accident. She opened her laptop and, feeling like a betrayer even as she did it, typed Marcus Rivera Phoenix accident into the search engine. Nothing relevant came up. She tried variations. Marcus Rivera Sarah accident. Marcus Rivera Chicago. Nothing that matched his story. Then on impulse she searched for Phoenix car accident 6 years ago. Mother died, infant injured. And there it was. But the names were wrong. The victims were listed as Sarah and Lily Chen. The father's name was Dr. Marcus Chen, a research scientist at Phoenix Biotech who'd been charged with negligence but fled before trial. Victoria's hands shook as she clicked through articles. Dr. Marcus Chen, brilliant researcher working on neural regeneration technology, accused of stealing proprietary research and causing the death of his wife in a high-speed chase with corporate security. Disappeared with his injured daughter before authorities could arrest him. Wanted for corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and involuntary manslaughter. The photo was 6 years old and blurry, but it was unmistakably Marcus. Younger, cleaner cut, wearing a lab coat and looking at the camera with confidence that current Marcus had lost. Dr. Marcus Chen, not Marcus Rivera, a scientist, not a janitor, a fugitive, not a devoted single father just trying to survive. Victoria sat in her car outside Marcus's building, her entire world tilting on its axis. Everything he'd told her was a lie. Everything she'd believed about him was false. The devoted father was real. She could see that. But the man himself? She had no idea who he really was. Her phone buzzed again. The unknown number. Now you know the truth. Question is, what will you do about it? He's dangerous, Victoria. He destroys everything he touches. Get away while you still can. Victoria looked up at the building, at the window where a light still glowed, where Marcus was probably putting Lily to bed and reading her a story, and being the father he clearly loved being. Was he dangerous? Was he a criminal? Or was he a man who'd made mistakes and was trying to atone for them? And more importantly, did it matter? Because Lily was still a genius who deserved opportunities. Lily was still an innocent child who'd done nothing wrong. Did Marcus's past change Victoria's obligation to help her? Victoria started her car, her mind racing. She should call the police. She should turn him in. She should protect herself and her company from whatever legal liability sheltering a fugitive might bring. But when she pictured Lily's face, when she remembered that little girl standing up to Jerry Stockton, when she thought about destroying the one stable thing in that child's life, she couldn't do it, not yet, not without more answers. But she also couldn't pretend she didn't know, because the truth was out there now, hovering between them like a ghost, and eventually, inevitably, it would demand to be acknowledged. Marcus Chen, or Marcus Rivera, or whoever he really was, had secrets that could destroy them all. And Victoria had just made the choice to keep those secrets, at least for now. The question was, would she live to regret it? As she drove away, Victoria didn't notice the figure watching from across the street, taking photos of her car, documenting her presence at Marcus's apartment. Didn't see the satisfied smile that crossed the watcher's face, or the phone call that was made as soon as she rounded the corner. She's involved now, the voice said into the phone. Just like you predicted, the widow and the fugitive. This is going to be easier than we thought. In his apartment, Marcus stood at the window watching Victoria's car disappear into the night. He knew. Somehow he knew that she'd figured it out. 6 years of running, 6 years of hiding, 6 years of building a life on foundations of lies and altered identities. And it was all about to crumble because he'd made the mistake of letting someone in, of trusting that maybe, just maybe, they could have something normal. He looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her bed, her new unicorn tucked beside her, dreaming of birthday parties and private schools and futures that might never come. And Marcus Chen, because that's who he really was under all the lies, made a decision. Tomorrow, he would tell Victoria everything, the real story, the full truth about Phoenix, about Sarah, about the technology he'd stolen and why he'd done it. About the people who were still hunting him, still wanted what was in his head, still wouldn't stop until they got it or he was dead. He would tell her everything, and then he would let her make her choice, help him or turn him in, knowing that either way, his life as Marcus Rivera was over. He just hoped that when the truth came out, when all the secrets were laid bare, Lily would be protected, because in the end, that was all that mattered. Not his freedom, not his life, not even his relationship with Victoria, which had started to feel like something more than gratitude, something dangerous and impossible and real. Just Lily. Always Lily. Everything for Lily. Marcus closed his eyes and prepared for the storm he knew was coming, because tomorrow everything would change, and there was no going back from the truth, no matter how much you wished you could. 4. The truth is about to come out. Hit that like button if you're ready for the shocking revelation. Victoria arrived at her office at 7 a.m., 2 hours before Marcus's shift started, her mind made up. She'd spent all night researching Dr. Marcus Chen, reading articles about Phoenix Biotech, about neural regeneration research, about a brilliant scientist who'd vanished into thin air, and now she needed answers directly from him. But Marcus was already there, waiting outside her office door with Lily beside him. The little girl looked confused, clutching her unicorn, while Marcus looked like a man preparing for execution. "We need to talk," they said simultaneously. Victoria unlocked her office and they entered in heavy silence. Lily wheeled herself to the window, giving the adult space, though Victoria suspected the brilliant child was absorbing every word. "I know who you are," Victoria said quietly. "Dr. Marcus Chen, Phoenix Biotech, the accident, all of it." Marcus's shoulders sagged, relief and terror warring on his face. "How long have you known?" "Since last night. Someone's been sending me messages warning me about you." "Jerry Stockton," Marcus said bitterly. "He hired a private investigator. I knew this would happen eventually. I just hoped." He glanced at Lily, pain etched in every line of his face. "I hoped we'd have more time." "Tell me the truth," Victoria demanded. "All of it. Why did you run? What did you steal? What really happened to Sarah?" Marcus took a deep breath and the words came pouring out like a dam breaking. "I was working on neural regeneration technology, a way to repair spinal cord injuries, restore function to paralyzed limbs. Revolutionary stuff. Phoenix Biotech owned the patents, but they wanted to weaponize it, sell it to military contractors for soldier enhancement. I refused. They threatened to fire me, bury the research. So I copied the files, planned to take them public, make the technology available to people who actually needed it." "You stole classified research," Victoria said flatly. "I liberated medical technology that could save lives." Marcus's voice rose with old passion. "Children like Lily, people in wheelchairs, victims of accidents, they deserved this treatment, not just soldiers being turned into enhanced weapons." Sarah agreed with me. "We planned to disappear, go public from somewhere safe. But Phoenix found out. They sent security after us. Sarah was driving. They chased us. She lost control." His voice broke. "The crash killed her and damaged Lily's spine. The very injury my research could have prevented. And Phoenix Biotech blamed me for everything. Theft, corporate espionage, Sarah's death. They wanted me arrested, wanted to make an example. So I ran, changed our names, became invisible." Victoria processed this, her mind racing through implications. "The technology you stole, do you still have it?" Marcus tapped his head. "All up here. I destroyed the physical files. It's the only leverage keeping Lily and me alive. If Phoenix thinks I might have copies somewhere, they can't kill me outright. But if I surface, if they find us," he looked at Lily, who was watching them with wide, knowing eyes. "They'll take everything. Lily will end up in foster care while I rot in prison. And that research will never see the light of day." "Papa didn't do anything wrong," Lily said suddenly, her voice fierce. "He tried to help people. That's not a crime. Legally it is," Victoria said gently. Then to Marcus. "But morally, ethically, I'm not sure." She paced her office, thinking like the CEO she'd become. "Phoenix Biotech still exists. They're still developing that technology, probably still planning military applications. If you came forward now, with proof of their intentions, with your research, you might be able to." "No." Marcus was absolute. "I won't risk Lily. I won't gamble with her safety for some heroic stand that might not even work." "Then what's your plan?" Victoria challenged. "Hide forever? Hope Jerry doesn't expose you?" "Because he will, Marcus. If he knows, he'll use it. Against you, against me, against anyone who's helped you. I know. Marcus's voice was hollow. That's why we're leaving. Today, I came to say goodbye, to thank you for everything you tried to do for Lily. But we can't stay, it's too dangerous now. No! Lily's cry was anguished. Papa, no, I don't want to run again. I like it here. I like Miss Bennett and my laptop in the school and… Lily, we don't have a choice. We always have a choice, Victoria interrupted. An idea was forming. Dangerous and brilliant and possibly insane. What if Phoenix Biotech no longer existed to chase you? Marcus stared at her. What are you talking about? Bennett Technologies is acquiring companies in the biotech sector. We've been looking for breakthrough technologies to diversify our portfolio. Victoria's mind was racing now, seeing possibilities, strategies, solutions. What if we acquired Phoenix Biotech? Hostile takeover. My company's bigger, richer, and I have David's connections throughout the industry. We buy them out, absorb their assets, and suddenly their patents belong to us. Their legal threats disappear. And you, she pointed at Marcus, come work for me legitimately. Head of Neural Research Division. Develop your technology the right way. Help the people you always wanted to help. Legal, safe, permanent. The silence in her office was deafening. Marcus looked stunned, hope and disbelief battling across his features. Lily had gone very still, barely breathing, like she was afraid any movement might shatter this impossible possibility. That would cost hundreds of millions, Marcus finally said. Why would you do that? Why would you risk everything for us? Victoria thought about David, about 8 months of grief and numbness and going through motions. She thought about finding Marcus and Lily in that conference room, about feeling alive again for the first time since the funeral. She thought about this brilliant man who'd sacrificed everything for principle, this genius child who deserved the world, this makeshift family that had somehow become the most important thing in her life. Because it's the right thing to do, Victoria said simply. Because David would have done it. And because… She met Marcus's eyes, saw her own loneliness reflected back. Because you're not the only one who needs a second chance. Girl 5. This is it. The moment everything changes. Comment below what you think will happen next. The hostile takeover of Phoenix Biotech took 6 weeks of brutal corporate warfare. Victoria leveraged every connection, called in every favor, and spent $340 million to acquire a company worth half that, just to eliminate the threat to Marcus and Lily. Jerry Stockton fought her at every board meeting, called her reckless and emotional, predicted disaster. The board wavered, but ultimately supported her, swayed by Victoria's passion and Lily's continued consulting brilliance. When the deal closed, Victoria immediately shut down Phoenix's military contracts, redirected all neural research toward medical applications, and hired Dr. Marcus Chen as head of neuroscience research at a salary that made his jaw drop. She also established the Sarah Chen Memorial Foundation for Spinal Injury Research, funded with $50 million, ensuring that Marcus's wife's death would lead to the medical breakthroughs she'd believed in. Lily started at Ashford Academy in September, where she immediately became the youngest student in the school's history, and shocked everyone by testing into 5th grade mathematics and science. The other parents complained at first until their children came home raving about the girl in the wheelchair who makes learning fun, and begging for Lily to come to their birthday parties. For 3 months, everything was perfect. Marcus thrived in his new role, his research moving forward legally and ethically. Lily blossomed socially and academically, and Victoria felt happy, genuinely, surprisingly happy in a way she hadn't been since David died. She and Marcus grew close, spending late evenings discussing his research, early mornings having coffee while Lily did homework, weekends taking the little girl to museums and parks. It felt natural, felt right, felt like the family Victoria had never had time to build with David before cancer took him away. That's when Jerry Stockton made his final move. He called an emergency board meeting and presented evidence that Victoria had used company funds illegally to benefit a personal relationship, that she'd concealed Marcus's criminal past from the board, that she'd put Bennett Technologies at legal and financial risk for a man she was romantically involved with. I'm not romantically, Victoria started. Then explain why Dr. Chen has been to your penthouse 17 times in the past month, Jerry interrupted, pulling out surveillance photos. Explain why you've been seen having intimate dinners, taking his daughter to private events, acting like a family. You've let your emotions compromise your judgment, Victoria. Again, the board members looked uncomfortable, uncertain. Victoria felt ice in her veins as she realized Jerry had been watching her, documenting her every interaction with Marcus and Lily, building a case for her removal. I move for a vote of no confidence, Jerry announced. Victoria Bennett is unfit to lead this company. Her decision-making is compromised by personal entanglements and the conference room door burst open. Marcus stood there, breathing hard, with Lily beside him looking furious. Behind them was Victoria's assistant, trying and failing to stop them. Before you vote, Marcus said, his voice ringing with authority, you should know that Dr. Jerry Stockton has been selling Bennett Technologies' proprietary information to your competitors for the past 18 months. The room exploded. Jerry's face went purple. That's a lie. You're a criminal trying to— I have proof, Marcus interrupted calmly. He pulled out a tablet, connecting it to the conference room display. When Victoria acquired Phoenix Biotech, all their records became Bennett property, including these emails showing that Jerry contacted them 9 months ago, offering to sell them Victoria's AI technology in exchange for helping him discredit me and remove Victoria from power. He's been your saboteur all along. The emails filled the screen, damning and detailed. Jerry had been planning this for months, using Marcus as a convenient weapon while simultaneously betraying the company for profit. The board members read in stunned silence. You hired the investigator who found me, Marcus continued, but you made a mistake. You used Phoenix Company resources to do it, and those records showed a pattern. Every internal problem Bennett Technologies has faced since David's death, the data breaches, the client losses, the mysterious technical failures, they all trace back to you. You've been deliberately sabotaging this company to make Victoria look incompetent, positioning yourself to take over while secretly selling her innovations to competitors. This is ridiculous, Jerry blustered. I've served this company for 15 years, Victoria interrupted, her voice deadly calm. I know. David trusted you. I trusted you. And you betrayed us both. She stood, addressing the board. Call our legal team. Call the FBI. Jerry Stockton is finished. As security escorted a raging Jerry from the building, Victoria sank into her chair, shaking with adrenaline and relief. Marcus knelt beside her, and without thinking, she grabbed his hand. Thank you, she whispered. How did you know? I'm a scientist. I see patterns. Marcus squeezed her hand back. And I protect the people I love. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge. But Lily, brilliant Lily, looked at them and smiled. Finally, the 6-year-old announced, I was wondering when you two would figure it out. 06. The final chapter. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss stories like this. What do you think the ultimate revelation will be? 6 months after Jerry's arrest, Bennett Technologies thrived under Victoria's leadership. Marcus's neural research was progressing toward human trials. Lily was thriving academically and socially, already being courted by universities despite being only 7 years old. And Victoria had found something she'd never expected to find again: hope. She and Marcus had officially started dating, taking things slowly for Lily's sake, but the connection between them was undeniable. Victoria had never felt this way with anyone, not even David, this sense of partnership, of understanding, of building something new from the ashes of their broken pasts. That's why when Marcus invited her to dinner at his apartment, their apartment now since they'd moved to a beautiful, accessible home in Evanston, Victoria expected something romantic, a celebration of their 6-month anniversary perhaps. She didn't expect Marcus to be pale and shaking when she arrived, or Lily to be crying in her wheelchair, or the stranger sitting in their living room wearing an expensive suit and a sympathetic expression. Victoria, Marcus said, his voice hollow. This is Robert Tillman. He's a lawyer, and he has something you need to know. Victoria's heart hammered. What's going on? Sit down, Ms. Bennett, Robert said gently. What I'm about to tell you changes everything. The story came out in pieces, each one more impossible than the last. David Bennett hadn't died of cancer 8 months ago. He'd died of complications from experimental neural treatment he'd received secretly at Phoenix Biotech after being diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. Treatment developed by Dr. Marcus Chen. You treated David? Victoria stared at Marcus in horror. You knew my husband? I never met him, Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. Phoenix Biotech handled all patient interactions. I only saw scans, symptoms, data. I didn't know his name until he broke. Until after you hired me. Until I saw his photo on your desk and realized the man I'd failed to save was your husband. Victoria felt the room spinning. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. Marcus's anguish was absolute. My treatment failed. David Bennett died because my research wasn't ready, because I pushed too hard to prove it worked, because I wanted so desperately to help people that I got a man killed. And then I met you, and you were so kind, so generous, and I knew if you knew the truth, you'd hate me. You'd blame me for David's death, and you'd be right to. David came to Phoenix voluntarily, Robert interjected quietly. He signed waivers. He knew the risks. Doctor Chen advised against the treatment, said it wasn't ready for human trials, but David insisted. He was dying anyway, wanted to try anything. He never told me, Victoria whispered. He said he was doing experimental chemo. He didn't want you to know he was dying, Marcus said. He wanted to protect you. And when the treatment failed, when he went into the final decline, he made Phoenix promise not to tell you where he'd been, what he'd tried. He wanted you to remember him as he was, not as a failed experiment. Victoria couldn't breathe. Her husband had lied to her. Marcus had lied to her. Everything she'd built her new life on was constructed on foundations of deception and death. Did you start this relationship because you felt guilty? She asked Marcus, her voice breaking. Was all of this, helping me, caring for me, pretending to love me, just atonement for killing my husband? No. Marcus reached for her, but she flinched away. Victoria, I love you. Really love you, not because of David, not because of guilt, but because you're brilliant and brave, and you saved my daughter's life, and you made me believe in second chances. How can I believe anything you say? Victoria stood, backing toward the door. You've been lying to me from the beginning. Both of you. She looked at Lily, who was sobbing. Did you know? Not until yesterday, Lily whispered. Papa just found out himself. The lawyer came because there's more. More? Victoria laughed bitterly. What else could there possibly be? Robert pulled out documents. David Bennett left a secret codicil to his will. In the event that Phoenix Biotech was ever acquired by another company, particularly his own company, and in the event that Dr. Marcus Chen ever came into your life, these instructions were to be revealed. What instructions? David knew he was dying. He knew the treatment might fail, but he also knew that Dr. Chen was a good man being exploited by a corrupt company. So David set everything up. Robert handed her the documents. The brain tumor? Real. The experimental treatment? Real. But David also used his time at Phoenix to document their illegal activities, their military contracts, their plans to weaponize neural technology. He knew you'd eventually find Marcus, knew you'd want to help him, and he left you everything you'd need to take down Phoenix Biotech and free Dr. Chen from his past. David Bennett spent his last month setting up your future happiness, Ms. Bennett. This wasn't coincidence. It was his final gift to you. Victoria's hands shook as she read David's words, written in his final weeks. My darling Victoria, if you're reading this, it means you've found Marcus Chen and his daughter. Good. They need you, and more importantly, you need them. Don't mourn me forever, my love. Live. Love again. Marcus is a good man who made mistakes trying to do the right thing, just like me, just like you. Forgive him, help him, and let yourself be happy again. That's all I ever wanted for you. Your eternal love, David. Victoria wept, clutching the letter, everything she thought she knew dissolving into a new truth. David had loved her so much he'd spent his dying days engineering her future. Marcus hadn't betrayed her. He'd been David's gift, chosen and orchestrated by a man who understood that love didn't end with death. I'm so sorry, Marcus whispered, kneeling beside her. For lying, for not telling you, for everything. If you want me to leave, if you never want to see me again, I'll understand. But please believe that everything I feel for you is real. Victoria looked at him through her tears. This brilliant, flawed, beautiful man who'd sacrificed everything for his daughter, who'd tried so hard to atone for his mistakes, who'd loved her without knowing he'd been chosen for her by the husband she'd lost. She looked at Lily, crying in her wheelchair, terrified of losing the only mother figure she'd known. She looked at the life they'd built together from ruins and grief and impossible second chances. David was right, she said finally. He was always right. I do need you, both of you. She took Marcus's face in her hands. I forgive you. For David, for the lies, for all of it. Because you're right. We all make mistakes trying to do the right thing. And maybe that's what love is. Forgiving each other's mistakes and building something beautiful anyway. Marcus kissed her then, desperate and relieved, and Lily laughed through her tears. And somewhere Victoria imagined David was smiling, knowing his final plan had worked perfectly. 3 months later, Marcus's neural regeneration treatment entered human trials, properly, legally, ethically. 1 year after that, Lily Rivera Bennett Chen took her first steps, her spine healed by her father's perfected technology, proving that miracles could come from tragedy if you loved hard enough to fight for them. And Victoria, CEO and widow and mother to a genius girl and partner to a brilliant man, learned that life could begin again in the wreckage of what you'd lost, that second chances weren't betrayals of first loves, but honors to them. That family wasn't just what you were born into, but what you chose to build from the pieces of broken lives. David had given her Marcus. Marcus had given her purpose. Lily had given her joy. And together, they'd built something neither grief nor secrets nor past mistakes could destroy. Some love stories end with death, but the best ones? They transform through it, becoming something stronger, deeper, more resilient than anything that came before. This was that kind of love, the kind that survives, the kind that heals, the kind that makes broken people whole again, the kind that changes everything, forever.